Well, what's today's great excitement? Well, on my little Supercub, in here, this is where the Speedo drive comes in, and inside here there's a Speedo Pinion gear, and to cut a long story short, it got worn out, and when I knocked out the old one, there was a bushing that I put somewhere very safe and very, much out of the way so that it would be saved for when I replaced the Speedo Pinion bushing, or when I replaced the Speedo Pinion I should say. Well, never found it again, so I have ordered one from AliExpress, a kit from AliExpress, which is not specifically for this bike, but the pinion bushing appears to be a similar size, so I shall show you what that looks like. So this is a Speedo gear that goes round with the hub, and then when it turns the pinion, that end then drives the speedometer cable, and then it produces the speed by turning the speedometer. So what happened was, when I took this out of the hub, you have to knock it out from here, and then there was a metal bushing that came with it as standard. The original one wore the teeth down. I wore the teeth down here, so it would just turn, it wouldn't actually drive the Speedo cable. So I've been looking for ages, absolutely ages, and I came across this kit on AliExpress, and it appears to have, I don't actually need this Speedo gear or this pinion, but this bushing has been like finding a unicorn. So I'm hoping that this is going to be exactly the same size. This is for some sort of Honda, but certainly not a Supercub. So this video may be entirely a complete and utter waste of time, but I'm hoping it's going to be a success, because the only part I'm missing is this little bit here. So here you are. This bushing holds it inside while the pinion rotates, so it holds it into the hub, and when you knock this out, when you knock this pinion out, this thing shoots off. So this part, don't ask me why, does not show up, including sometimes the pinion gear, does not show up on any parts diagrams at all. And if you look for a new Speedo drive kit for a Supercub, you won't see that. You might see this, the Speedo gear, that's possible. You may, if you're lucky, see the pinion, which again in most cases it doesn't list it, but you certainly will not find the bushing. Now, why they don't just supply it with any of the kits, I don't know. And as I say, this one came from AliExpress. It was about £6.50 delivered, took just over a week. So this is going to be a test to see if this is going to be suitable, and hopefully it is, because if it's not, I'm back to a non-operating Speedo. But anyway, I'm going to take the front wheel off. I think it's a 17 on this side, and I think it's a 19 on the other side. Take the spindle out and remove the brake hub. In order to do that, you need to slacken off the brake. The brakes are absolutely crap on this bike on the front. It's the only bike I've ever had where I pretty much exclusively use the back brake. The front's just to kind of take up the slack, shall we say. So that's that bit. The next thing is for me to undo this screw. This is the screw that retains the Speedo cable. So that's a Phillips. I'll just go and get a Phillips and undo that. So that Phillips screw gets removed. Make sure I don't drop it. Alright, so that's the Phillips screw, and then this is the Speedo cable. You just pull it out. So as you can see, what happens is the screw basically goes into there and then it doesn't come out. So that's what holds it in place. So while I'm doing that, I'll just put that screw back into the threads so I don't lose it. So that's that. I'm not going to put it in too far because that's where the Speedo pinion goes in and comes out here. So it's going to be a 19mm for this, and then a 17mm for this side, or it is on this bike anyway. It's a spindle remover. The top up's absolute nonsense. It's a 17 on this side, and it's a focus. It's a 15 on this end. So that's that. Then it's just a case of taking the wheel out. You'll see there's a slide there, kind of comes forward and out, and then just make sure you avoid the mud guard. Well, that's the wheel out. Because there shouldn't be any tension on the brake pads, that just pulls out. So you'll see the pinion has already been taken out. So the pinion goes in there, and the Speedo ring gear goes on the top. Now I've got a choice of two here. I'm going to have a look and see which one looks like the better option, and then I'll put them in place. So obviously you need to grease this up, and then you need to put, I'll turn this over so you can see. Don't want to lose that. That's from the brake. So the Speedo pinion will go down and in there. Don't know if the flash will make any difference. So I'll give that a bit of a clean out first. But essentially that goes in there like that, and then that bushing gets knocked into place. So I'll push that in. So now you see where that is. It's down in there, and then the gear goes that way, but you put the gear in first, or I put the gear in first, and then the bushing gets knocked up against that edge and keeps that in, keeps it retained. So I'm going to see what they both fit like dry, and then make my decision. Right, so that's the new pinion in. I'm going to rotate it inside. You see the Speedo drive turning. So the next thing is to put it all back together. Well, I got the bushing, I put the pinion in, and then I used, what size is this? A 7mm, but whatever size fits in there over the pinion will do to hammer it down. Took a bit more hammering than I expected actually. So anyway, you'll now see the new pinion is in there and the Speedo drive's there. So I'm going to pop out that Speedo drive once more, and I'm going to put a bit more grease on it. I'll do that with two hands. Once I've done that, I'll pop it back into the wheel and reassemble, and I'll spin the wheel and see if the drive is working. Should be though, hopefully. Well, that's that done. It's all back together. I've not put this back in fully yet. I want to make sure the cable's properly aligned. I've adjusted the brake. I've used some of Eurocar parts, or was it eBay? I can't remember. Finest brake cleaner. I've cleaned out the inside of the brake hub and I cleaned off the shoes. As I say, on the Supercub, the front brake's pretty hopeless actually. Unlike any bike I've ever had, where I pretty much exclusively use the front brake, but in this one the front brake supplements the back brake. But I mean, it's not a fast machine, so it's not as if you're racing. It's adequate, I would say, but yeah, it's pretty non-existent, the performance. But that's just part of the character of the bike. So anyway, the next step will be to give it a test run and see if my Speedo is back to working. It's certainly turning when I turn the gear, but we'll see if that translates through the cable. I have got a spare cable, but I think the cable's actually okay. I should have put a drill attachment or something onto it just to check, but we're not going to bother doing that here. Well, don't you love it when a plan comes together and you're just about to start tidying the tools up and you realise you forgot to put the bloody seal back on the hub. So, going to take the front wheel off again and fit this seal. Fantastic. Well, that's where the seal's missing. It is here. You can see when I'm turning that, it's definitely turning the pinion, so that's definitely a positive sign. Now to put it all back together. So if you're doing this job, make sure if you take the dust seal out, which you don't have to, I took it out to try the different heads or the different gears, make sure you put the dust seal back. Well, that's it all back together. I've put that fully home now, the retaining screw. I put the hub, or the, what we call this part, the brake hub, into the wheel, and I turned it round and I double checked that the teeth, the tongues, were catching against the central part, and it was turning the spindle as well. So presumably the cable should be working. The only thing I can do is take it for a quick run and see if it works as it should. This was something I put on recently. I put some cheap AliExpress LED spotlights, make a huge difference. They were a whopping £1.52 each. And as you can imagine, they add about 10 miles an hour. But they're not for aesthetics, they're merely for practical night vision. They're on the beam function. This headlight's actually okay, but it tends to be like a searchlight, tends to be a bit high up, and I've got it as low as I can. But they make a heck of a difference at night, absolutely. You know, like a modern 12-volt bike. You know, decent sized motorcycle, really good. So anyway, the next thing now, second time, is to take this for a quick whiz. So I'm going to get my helmet and just go for a quick blast and see if it actually works. Well, there's the proof of the pudding. It is working. Well, I have to admit it's quite a sunny day here today, but well, that's it all done. The Speedo's working perfectly, as you can see with the previous video in portrait mode. I've just tightened up this mirror. It has a tendency to come slack here for some reason, and well, that's about it. As a get around, I was using a bicycle Speedo using that sensor, and then just the last time I was out on the bike, the magnet popped out. So that was a temporary workaround, but it's quite handy because it gives you a little clock so I can easily see the time. So turn that off. So that's that. I will get the thing a wee bit of a clean up before I go out, maybe pump the tyres up, and time is it now? 4:45 almost. Yeah, I'll get it for a wee hurl tonight, and if there's any problems I shall report back further, but I'm not expecting any problems, or hopefully not. So I'll find out the name of the kit that I got, purely for the bushing. It's not for the drive or the pinion. The pinion might work, I'm not sure about the drive, but as I say, it's a part that will not show up on any schematic or microfiche, but it's it's in there, and it holds. That's where the Speedo pinion goes here. The very end of it, the nib goes into that. The drive section's here, and then between where the thread, where the Phillips is, and this bit, it's a retainer bushing. But I couldn't find that on any parts diagram, and I just simply took a chance of ordering something that looked very similar, and thankfully it worked. So any questions, let me know. We'll probably be going back to the normal seed content next week, because I was away up in the Highlands at the weekend, and my front left wheel bearing started to make a bit of a whine, so I'm going to have to find a knuckle, hopefully with a decent bearing, and fit that. But if that doesn't work, I'll just have to do the same as the last time and get a new bearing and fit that, and then put it all back together. But I'm not complaining, 195,000 miles on it. There's no shame in that whatsoever, and I got 66 or 67 miles per gallon on the whole trip, which I think is pretty bloody good. So anyway, hope you're all having a good day, and you've got some sunshine where you are.